What's up, guys? Another video, another review. We do have the Combat Evolved and Infinite Chief 2-pack by Jazware. This is part of their Spartan collection line. I think this is considered part of Wave 4. I'll call it Wave 4.5 because Combat Evolved Chief will be released in part of Wave 5. But there's a lot to go over in this video, a lot of interesting decisions made on Jazware's end for CE Chief, so let's get right into it. Before we do get into breaking down the figure, I would like to do the turntable segment first. I feel like doing the articulation and breaking down the figure first before the turntable does devalue the turntable segment of the videos. I don't know, that's at least how I feel. But just before we get into breaking down this figure, there are a lot of interesting decisions made by Jazware, and spoiler alert, they're not very good ones, which is very unfortunate because I had a lot of high hopes for this figure. So let's get right into it. So let's get into the articulation of the figure. It's his head articulation, barely movable. You can barely look up or down, let alone side to side, due to how chunky his chest piece and helmet are. He can barely look side to side. The paint job on the fin, at least for me, was kind of iffy. Like, that side's a straight line and this side not so much. His arm articulation is actually kind of subpar. It's actually below average when it comes to a Spartan collection figure. Like, he can do a good T-pose, but his elbow articulation is really limited, as you can see. Like, I'm moving it as much as I can up without, trying to put too much pressure and breaking it. Like, he cannot move his elbow very well, which is very sad. Hand articulation is just hand articulation. I don't know how they would mess that up. Torso articulation, horrendous. It's so stiff that I accidentally snapped him in half with it. Oh, I took him, broke him. I didn't break him. He came in half is what I'm trying to say. And I don't know if it's because of the pouches on his torso, that's really unfortunate if that's the case. His thigh articulation is pretty solid. Knee articulation is fucking terrible. He can not even do half of a butt kick. There's like, where the knee pad is, you can kind of see this chonky piece of plastic they put in place. I don't know what Jazware did, but they somehow made their knee articulation even worse than Halo 2 Chiefs. And then, what is it? His feet, like, there's me trying to bend his knees again, like, without breaking them. And then feet articulations, same statement of the hands. I don't know how you would mess that up. If they somehow made feet articulation worse, I would be fucking livid with fucking Jazware. Toe articulation, pretty standard, just up and down. Don't know how you would mess that up. And then he can do like 65% of a split, which is, you're not going to have him doing splits anyways, but there you go. Going into the hands that do come with CE Chief, he comes with the standard 7 that every figure does come with in the Spartan collection, and this is the same copy and paste of Wave 4. If you've seen my previous video on the majority of Wave 4, you know exactly what I'm talking about, but for those who do not know, he comes with 2 dual-wielding, like, trigger finger hands, 2 closed fists, 2 holding hands, and 1 call-out hand, where essentially he has 2 fingers out, like he's doing a tactical, like, call out, or he's pointing to something, however you want to put it. But those are the hands that do come with CE Chief. So here we do have the Infinite Chief. This is probably the best looking and feeling one yet in the Spartan collection. It's just beautiful with that reflective visor and just the worn looking armor. Really well done on Jazware's end. And it's a little unfortunate that this figure is really nice, and the only reason I'm saying this is because if you're an avid Spartan collection collector like me, you probably already have an Infinite Chief, and you probably bought this 2-pack just for the CE Chief. And seeing that the figure that you wanted less out of the 2 being way better than the one that you wanted the most out of the 2 feels like a kick to the dick, at least in my opinion. And if you bought this 2-pack for both figures rather than one, good for you, power to you. You got your full money's worth, where I'm the fucking idiot who spent $40 on a CE Chief just to get an extra Infinite Chief. But there's a silver lining with this guy being beautiful. I did take my Wave 1 Chief off the shelf, and he has been replaced with this Chief, so I guess I didn't really spend 40 bucks on just a CE Chief with an extra paperweight at the end, but it's just that's kind of how it felt initially while breaking down the figures and recording this video. But overall, this figure is very fucking solid, and let's go see that. Let's have me break that down for you. So looking at the articulation up and down, side to side, the helmet can do it without, bumping into any of the armor. And then arm articulation's a little alright. He can't really do a T pose, more of an A pose, but his elbows are really good. He can bring his forearms up, and I don't see Jazware messing up the hands anytime soon. Torso articulation is a little solid and stiff, but you know what? I'm used to that from Wave 4's torso situation. Legs, his leg articulation is amazing. He can do almost a full butt kick, which is way better than anything CE Chief did try pulling off. Feet articulation, I don't see Jazware messing that up anytime soon. And the same applies to the toes. I don't see Jazware taking that away. Overall, really solid when it comes to articulation. You can't really do a full split, but that's all good. So for Infinite Chief, the whole Wave 4 formula for the hands is actually not done here. They removed the dual wielding trigger finger hands with open palm hands, and then you still have your closed fists, your holding hands, and the tactical call out hand. So I thought that was a cool change of pace. So here we do have a look at the Combat Evolved Anniversary Assault Rifle. I can see Jazware is going to be using the latest models for all the weapons, so they didn't use the original design for the Combat Evolved Assault Rifle. And then here we have a look at the Halo Infinite Assault Rifle. It is actually a bigger model than any of the previous releases, and I also thought it was an interesting design choice to make it more blacked out, because if you've owned any assault rifles from any of the previous figures, the assault rifle, at least the Halo Infinite model, is more gray, and that gray is usually on the lighter side. But I kind of do wish that Jazware made an exception for Combat Evolved Chief, and they used the original design of the assault rifle in Combat Evolved. I just like that design more, and I thought it would have been great for a toy, and it would have just been awesome to see classic Halo weapons return, seeing that they're paying attention to the older games now. But that's just my opinion. I'm not going to complain. It's just a different model assault rifle when I'd rather prefer the classic. So before we move on to the next weapon, I did want to compare all the assault rifles we do have so far with the Spartan collection. So on the left, we do have the Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary Assault Rifle, whereas on the right, we do have the newer Halo Infinite model for the assault rifle. And then going from top to bottom, we have the Wave 1 Halo Infinite Assault Rifle that came with Master Chief. And then in the middle, we have the Halo Reach Assault Rifle that came with Noble 6, where honestly it's just a Halo Infinite Assault Rifle with a stripe on it. And then at the very bottom, weirdly enough, we did get a Halo 5 Assault Rifle. That came with Sarah Palmer, which was a very interesting and refreshing take for the Spartan collection, because Halo 5 is a very controversial game amongst the Halo community, and also it really showed that Jazware does like to have variety amongst their figures, because I know Jazware is known for reusing a lot of models for a lot of figures. So I thought it was just very cool and interesting on Jazware's part to touch Halo 5. And then from here, you can even see the difference in size between the old and new Halo Infinite Assault Rifle. I think it's very cool on Jazware's end that they even addressed this situation, because I knew this was an issue in the community, that people just were not liking the size of the Halo Infinite Assault Rifle. So I think it's really cool on Jazware's end that they tackled this issue that people were having. I think that's this is an amazing example of community feedback and kind of customer service. Here we have the Halo Reach Magnum. I don't know why this is included with Combat Evolved Chief, because in Combat Evolved Anniversary, the Magnum was still the Combat Evolved Magnum, just, with better, textures. So I thought it was a little weird and disappointing on Jazware's end to keep the Reach Magnum, or include the Reach Magnum, I should say, because the Halo CE Magnum is such a staple in the Halo community. It's such an unforgettable weapon. It would have been easily another reason to just get this 2-pack is to get that just classic Magnum, yet here we are stuck with the Reach Magnum. No hate, it's a really good Magnum, it's just weird. So before we move on to the next segment of the video, I did want to go over some of the sidearms we do see throughout the Spartan collection for the UNSC. And just so you know, the one on the right pointing up, that is the Magnum that does come with Combat Evolved Chief. I don't hate it, I just think it's weird that they would include the Reach Magnum with Combat Evolved Chief. Like, I think it's painting and sculpting is fine. I just thought it was a weird decision on Jazwares' end. But with that out of the way, from top to bottom, we have the sidekick. I know it's not a Magnum, but I just wanted it there for a visual just representation as a part of the UNSC sidearm family. It's got that green and black. Jazware hasn't made any changes for it since its release. And in the middle, we do have the Sarah Palmer Magnums. Jazware did try playing this off like they are Halo 4 Magnums, when they are not. It's just the Reach model, the black slide, and every other thing being a light gray. And then on the very bottom, we do have the Reach Magnum that comes with all our Noble team members. It's got the lower black body, it's got the upper light gray, and then it's got the white stripe. I think that's just going to be the representation, that white stripe, implying that it is the Reach Magnum when it comes with our Reach characters. So yeah, on to the next segment. So if you're a stingy bitch like me and you really wanted your Combat Evolved Chief to come with the classic CE assault rifle model and the CE Magnum, but you don't know how the fuck you're going to achieve this, well, do not worry. There is a guy in Etsy who makes custom Spartan collection weapons that are not released yet, and he has done the Combat Evolved assault rifle and the Combat Evolved Magnum. He has a great portfolio. He's done other weapons for the Spartan collection, and he does some Star Wars The Black Series stuff. If you are also interested in that, I will put a link in the description to his shop so you can look at his portfolio and see if there's anything else you want. But that's all I gotta say. I will definitely be purchasing the Combat Evolved assault rifle and Magnum. On to the next weapon. And the final weapon to come in this 2-pack is the Disruptor. This is probably the best looking Disruptor Jazware has given us. Usually Jazware would just paint it one solid gray, but here they've given us the brown leather straps. There's 2 grays on the weapon. My camera, I don't think it's doing it justice when it comes to those grays, but trust me, this is probably the best looking Disruptor we've gotten from Jazware yet. And something I'm noticing with this 2-pack in general is that Jazware is really stepping up their game when it comes to the weapons of the Spartan collection. And when comparing the Disruptors throughout the Spartan collection, it is even more clear that the one that came in this 2-pack, and probably for future releases, will be the best looking Disruptor, because when you look at the one from Wave 1, the one on top, that it's just 2 grays, they're both light gray, and you can just tell that Jazware went over it once and just called it a day, where in Wave 3 it's the same, just they went over it, called it a day. But to give them credit, the contrast between the grays is greater. And then you look at the one that came in the 2-pack, it's got the 2 grays and the brown leather straps. It's really cool to see Jazware up their game when it comes to the detail they are putting on the weapons. It is very apparent in this 2-pack that they are upping their weapon game, despite, you know, having the Halo Reach Magnum for Combat Evolved Chief. But besides that, you can clearly see that Jazware is branching out when it comes to adjustments and details when it comes to the weapon business of the Spartan collection. So here is Combat Evolved Chief on the turntable. We are getting towards the end of the video, so I'm going to be giving my final thoughts, pros, cons, and all that. So getting in with it, here's the cons. Articulation is the big one. If you couldn't tell while going over Chief's articulation, I was fairly disappointed in just how limited it is, especially for this being, we're wave 4 into the Spartan collection, and you think by now that Jazware would have their articulation down. Articulation shouldn't be getting worse, it should be getting better if anything, or just staying the same, because to be fair, in wave 1 the articulation was amazing for the Spartan collection. So I'm just a little sad that in this case, this anniversary, you know, exclusive, the figure is kind of just when it comes to articulation. And my only other problem besides articulation is the Magnum. This is just me being a stingy bitch, but I do wish it was the Combat Evolved Magnum. I think it's weird that they overlooked that and just went with the Reach Magnum, because the CE Magnum is such an iconic weapon in the Halo community, and I don't understand why Jazware skipped out on that opportunity. I understand the Anniversary Assault Rifle. It is part of Combat Evolved Anniversary, so I'm going to give them a pass on that, despite me wishing it was the original model. But aesthetically, his armor is awesome. The sculpting is fine. The only problem I do have when it comes to painting is on the head. The helmet doesn't have the black coloring on the vents. They just kind of went over it with the green and called it a day. But otherwise, the sculpting and most of the painting is pretty solid. So let's just get to Infinite Chief. So here's a look of Infinite Chief on the turntable. So final thoughts, there's actually not a lot of cons when I was thinking about it, because he's a pretty solid figure. The only con I can really think of is that it's just another reuse of the model. You know, Jazware loves using the Infinite model, just spitting it out, making as much money off this one model. But overall, the painting is great, the articulation is great, the sculpting is great, the weapons are even great. Like, they upped the size of the assault rifle so it's more to scale, and this is, like I said before earlier, the best looking disruptor we've gotten so far. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, one problem I do have is actually with the disruptor. The hands that he does use to hold the assault rifle don't really work well on the disruptor, and the hands that do work well on the disruptor, even those don't work well. Like, his hands barely hold the disruptor, is what I'm trying to say. Like, the disruptor is very flimsy and it falls out very easily. Yeah, besides that, there's not really much wrong with this figure. This is a really solid figure. I actually have to give this figure, and I'm gonna give it an 8.5 and maybe a 9. I only say 8.5 because of the hand issue. Otherwise, it's a really solid figure, and yeah, I don't have much else to complain about or rant about when it comes to Infinite Chief, if I'm being completely honest. Just a really solid figure. It's unfortunate that it's a re-release for what, the 5th time now. So here we are, guys. It's the end of the video. It's almost time to go home. If you don't like this video, I don't blame you. I did sound very dead throughout this video. As I was making this video, there was this energy that I wasn't really vibing with, and I'm gonna try and sound more awake and more alive throughout my videos. I'm trying that right now in the intro, of all fucking places in this video to fucking start. But CE Chief, kind of disappointed. Infinite Chief, even though it's the 6th re-release, I'm very happy with how he turned out. I'm happy to have a Combat Evolved figure at all, because I was born in 2001, so I never had the chance to get a Combat Evolved figure for retail price. So I'm happy that I now have a Combat Evolved figure. Wave 5 has been leaked. There is going to be a solo release for Combat Evolved Chief, and I fucking will be buying him, because I want to see if his articulation is better. If his articulation is better than this fucking 2-pack, A, I'm gonna be pissed. B, I'm probably just gonna take this inferior version and make a custom out of it. Probably just make an all black Spartan, because black and red were my favorite fucking colors when it came to fucking making your Spartan specific colors, and in Combat Evolved you can only choose one color, so I went with black. So besides all that, I really hope you enjoyed the video despite me being low energy and sounding dead more than half the time. I promise I will be bringing more energy to these videos. All I ask is that you like and subscribe. You don't have to comment, you don't gotta click no bell. I just want to do the little things that get me up there before I start begging for fucking mercy from the YouTube gods. I'm gonna be humble as much as I can before I become a sellout, whenever the fuck that will be. But anyways, I'll see y'all in another one.